Welcome to Theology Thursday, an ecumenical space for students to discuss matters of faith and theology.
I'm your host, Connor Grubbs.
I am your co-host, Ryan Mock.
And I'm your co-host, Johnny Grubbs.
Nice.
Sweet. We're back.
Yeah, we're
back
baby.
in the house.
Yeah.
Season 5, and we broke all of our promises to you. We're not in our studio.
Connor broke the promises.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's be
I didn't
clear.
make any promises.
Okay, let's be fair. We could have been in there today. It's not like, but we just
We're actually going to set up the studio after recording the podcast.
scheduling conflicts.
It's fine. It's going to be great. You will get to see over the course of season 5 the progress, because it's going to start like kind of lame, but certainly better than this, and then like progressively just get better and better. And if you really believe in what we're doing and you want to help, there's always Patreon. We have coming very soon Theology Thursday mugs. That's the next merch drop. So if you're like tier 3, like VIP access member, which is $12, I think. Yeah, it's $12 a month. Not only do you get access to bonus content and other podcasts that we do, but you also, quarterly, you get new merch shipped straight to your door. Might be a shirt, might be a mug. We have lots of things coming down the pipeline, but we're excited. It's season 5. We don't really have like a special theme this season. We tried a couple different things the first 3 seasons. We sort of experimented, and season 4 we came back to form, which was just taking listener questions. And I'm pretty sure we're going to stick to that.
I think that's where we thrive.
Yeah, we tried some interviews.
That's our groove.
We tried like a little systematic theology thing, and all that was fun, but I think Theology Thursday is at its best when we are just taking listener questions. Speaking of listeners, we're just hanging out today, okay? So we don't have a specific question today. We don't have a specific subpoint. Sort of a main topic is SBC 21, which we watched together. We watched the live stream that just took place in Nashville a couple weeks ago. We almost went, but we didn't. No. We ended up staying in the area.
And it's actually good that we didn't go.
Yeah, no, it worked out. But we watched pretty much the whole thing.
Yep.
And so SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, one of the biggest denominations, Protestant denominations.
They're not technically a denomination.
But they are.
Sure, if you want to think of them as a denomination, sure, go ahead. Just wanted to clarify that point.
Yeah, I mean, they basically are.
Sure, if you want to think of them like a denomination, sure, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, you go ahead.
No. Why do you have such a problem with me saying that?
I just wanted to make sure we're clear.
The next generation
Connor.
airhead.
Next gen airhead.
No, here's the thing, because most Southern Baptists who attend Southern Baptist churches see it as a denomination,
sure,
and they treat it as such.
They could see it as that.
This is useless. I know. Could you offer some actual like?
It's a convention.
It is a convention.
As J.D. Greer himself said, the Southern Baptist Convention only exists for 2 days a year.
Right, but it exists to dictate the operations of a network of entities that is operating year round.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind about the Southern Baptist Convention is that it's very decentralized, as opposed to more traditional understandings of denomination. Denominations they might be decentralized, but usually there's much more oversight into individual churches and more of a structure, like in Presbyterianism. In a Presbyterian form of government, you have the individual churches, and then you have the presbytery, which is the combo of all the elders, and they meet and they're held to certain standards and whatnot. And then they have the synod or the general assembly, and but that they are always held to that standard, and It's different. It's different.
The structure is far more political and
In American.
It functions more like an American
it's
business.
Kind of like the governors have a lot of more power in the states. So the pastors have more power within their churches.
Yeah.
To change things, and the convention kind of oversees that. It's a little bit more like that. However, that was part of the tension of the SBC. I think was people were like, people are operating with a little bit too much autonomy.
Right, because Southern Baptists do ultimately operate as a denomination in the sense that they have a faith and message that their churches are expected to adhere to, and there is accountability in the sense that they have removed churches from their fellowship, from their network, if they don't adhere to some of the core tenets of the Baptist faith and message. Now, granted, within that, like, they do emphasize the autonomy of each local church, and there is wiggle room on a lot of issues within the Baptist faith and message. They're not, real strict on soteriology or different things like that. Like, there's a lot of Calvinists and there's a lot of Arminians, and they're all, they can be Southern Baptist even if they differ on that. One of the big debates.
Let's set it up like this: if the Southern Baptist Convention 2021 annual meeting was a story, there was 4 subplots going on.
Sure.
There was, I don't know how we want to talk about this, but the first one was the sexual abuse allegations and the call for an investigation. The second was what do we do about CRT? The third was what do we say about abortion? And the fourth one was who do we elect as president? And all of those came together and intertwined. They're all connected at this meeting.
Yeah.
Particularly the president part.
It really did get it was cinematic.
Yeah.
It really was.
So here, why does this matter? Denomination convention, whatever you want to call it, okay?
Sure, you could call it that.
It does represent the largest portion of Protestants.
Yeah.
In America.
So it's important.
So
to see what they do.
It does, and typically when people look at, and a lot of people of other traditions are actually pretty upset about this, is like, how come when the SBC has their meeting, like CNN and Fox and everybody's covering it, but like nobody covers what we do?
Wait, the
like,
PCA just had their General Assembly. I think it's still going on, actually.
Yeah, and that's not being
Anybody
talked
paying
to.
attention to PCA?
No, and so some people are kind of upset about it, understandably, but frankly, if you look at the history of the Southern Baptist Convention, they've kind of positioned themselves to be in the spotlight by aligning with politics, very often. And it was just really interesting to see. So it does matter because it does affect a lot of outsiders' perspective on Christianity. And for us, I think there was a little bit of a personal element to it because we grew up in Southern Baptist Church.
I also think, too, that just historically speaking now, especially in modernity, and the reality is the SBC is kind of a microcosm of what evangelicalism largely is today.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it kind of is, it's like putting your hand on a wrist to get a pulse on like what was going on in evangelicalism.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. For me, I've been outside of the Southern Baptists for about half a year now, and so, which has been weird because I started at a Baptist school, again, grew up going to a Baptist church. I think I was more deeply entrenched in that culture than either of you guys were, even though we all kind of grew up in it. And I was wanting to go, plant churches with Southern Baptist Convention, all this stuff. And after my activity on Twitter during SPC 21, I made sure that I will never work at a Southern Baptist church again.
I don't know. You can get away with a lot and still work at a Southern Baptist church.
Okay, that's big oof. Big oof. It's been interesting because for me, me leaving was pretty abrupt, and there was a lot of my identity that was kind of going in that direction. And now I'm getting to kind of see, and I'm glad that I'm out of it. If anything, that whole couple of days gave me relief that it's good that I'm not a part of that anymore. However, there's a lot of amazing Southern Baptist leaders that I have a lot of respect for. J.D. Greer being one of them.
He did an excellent job moderating that whole thing.
Yeah, and he gave a fire sermon that during the convention.
Yeah, it was he did a great job. What's the official title of the parliamentarian? He was great. He's standing in the background making sure everything goes where it needs to go, and he just had a smile on his face the whole time, even though it was like an angry smile. You could tell like he was about if
He was dying inside.
He was dying.
Parts.
And then there was the little elf man.
And I don't know if that's politically correct.
It's probably not.
Like, there was this short guy with like
no,
this
he
little
genuinely,
voice.
but yeah, no, he looked like a character from Elf, from the movie Elf,
In a
like
good way.
Like yes,
Yeah,
he looked.
we're
I don't want to get in
complimenting.
trouble.
No. Like when I say, I mean he looks like Papa Elf, like that actor. Like I'm not
Okay,
even.
there you go. That's a little bit better. But he also has a voice, and
Yeah.
So he would
It
come
was
up.
cute.
It was very cute. And then he would come up and he would be like, let's he would always explaining the ballots, right? Because
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
were ripping off the ballots
Yeah.
the wrong way, and he's like,
And he's
"Make
getting very
sure."
frustrated. Yeah,
Make sure.
he was the hero. You had AC guy who came up to make a motion that they turn the AC on. There was a lot of moments
of fun.
of levity in there.
Yeah.
So we can kind of talk a little bit about these things. So there is in 2018, maybe 2019, Houston Chronicle published some findings on abuse, sexual abuse within Southern Baptist churches. And J.D. Greer and some people moved that they started addressing some of these issues, and it's kind of been an ongoing thing, but this was sort of a reckoning because a lot of victims came to this meeting demanding for justice, because the thing is the executive committee of the Southern Baptist Convention basically their solution to this Houston Chronicle article was, we are going to hire a firm to investigate us. But they're basically having the investigation done, like they're the ones who get the report. They're the one. You can't hold yourself accountable to something. Like that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
It's very convenient, though.
It's extremely convenient, but it's also wrong. So, people showed up. They spoke up. Pastor Grant Gaines came and made a motion that they have a third party come in and investigate and give the findings to an entity committee that's formed outside of the executive committee. And it passed.
It passed, but that arc was a little bit cinematic too,
Yeah.
because they got it in, and then of course they tabled it for the following meeting, and Grant Gaines making sure he was near a microphone at the right time to get the people to vote to not table it.
Yeah.
Which,
And deal with it
Yeah.
then and there.
and
Which,
I just wonder how surprised the executive committee was about that, or if they kind of knew that they were going to get overruled. But
I think good old Ronnie Floyd thought he was going to be able to push it off a little longer.
Well, then he got up on the last day when they were talking about it, and he got up and he got to the mic and responded. He's like, "This is a good thing. This needs to pass."
yeah, which was interesting.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That was an interesting moment.
Yeah, it was. So, obviously that was a victory. We're glad that happened. It doesn't mean that all of that's resolved, but I do think that was a good step.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting discussions to me, I think in evangelicalism period right now, we did 2 episodes on it, and we can talk about it briefly, is CRT.
Yeah. So everybody wanted to have a say about CRT, and there's a few kind of like key moments.
There was a guy with a sticker that said "Stop CRT."
There was multiple guys with stickers with
Yeah.
And
stop-
t-shirts.
Stop CRT. Yep. And there were multiple moments where messengers were allowed to come to the mic and speak about it and whatnot. One guy in particular, Tom Askell, he motioned to rescind. Is that how you say it? Rescind. Rescind Resolution 9 of the 2019. Yeah, the 2019 Southern Baptist meeting, which basically Resolution 9 was a resolution that the Southern Baptist Convention came up with in 2019 that said CRT, it could be used as a tool, but we understand that the Bible is our ultimate authority. So Tom, good old Tom, he wanted to basically revoke that resolution, and what it ended up happening was it was ruled out of order because you can't rescind a previous resolution, because a resolution is basically the viewpoint of the opinions and viewpoints of that particular convention. of that time that it was made, which means you can't rescind any resolution that was in the past. The only thing you could do is make new resolutions. So that was shot out of the water. There was a few other moments. There was a resolution that did pass. I think it was Resolution 2. That was a statement on racial reconciliation. And it basically said that we should be for racial reconciliation, but we oppose any ideology that that is antithetical to the gospel. And it didn't name CRT.
And some people were upset that it did.
Some people were very mad about that, and they kept proposing amendments to this resolution, like we need to add CRT. And then there was a moment that somebody got, I think James Merritt, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He got up and said, basically, this is dumb that we're arguing about this.
Yeah.
We stand for the gospel. We don't need to name CRT. It was a very good. That was a powerful moment.
Yeah, I think too it was really good is like because we know that CRT in certain forms can be antithetical to the gospel, depending on how you interpret it.
The conclusions of CRT
yeah, so there you go.
can be antithetical to the gospel,
but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's why it wouldn't make sense to name it because.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I don't understand why people are so hyper focused on CRT. It really is bizarre to me because this is such a debate in the church right now, and people are going back and forth. And here's the thing. Here's what you communicate to most people of color.
You're so woke.
When you say we don't CRT is evil, it's wrong. What you're communicating at a base level is that you don't think that systemic racism is a reality. And some people are doing that intentionally because you don't think that systemic racism is reality. But I want people who acknowledge that systemic racism is real to recognize that that is one of the core tenets of CRT. And when you say that you don't believe in CRT, that's what you're communicating to a lot of people.
By the way, you don't have to believe CRT to be able to affirm systemic racism.
Right.
But CRT is definitely helpful in
Yeah.
understanding that concept.
Right. And CRT is a tool. We've said it before, but critical race theory, it's a tool, and it is not in and of itself wrong. Some of the conclusions that it can draw might be problematic, but that's true with any tool or any sort of process of thinking. So
Yep.
anyway, that was interesting.
Yeah. So oh yeah, and then almost all of the SBC seminary presidents did speak out against CRT by name. They did when it was their turn to talk.
Well,
so
and
that was fun.
I think the reason specifically the seminary leaders are talking about it, and well, I know the reason, is because it's, now schools are talking about teaching it, and it's come in the education system. So people want to make sure that Southern Baptist schools aren't going to teach it.
And they made it very clear that they were not. That's exactly what I expected.
A nice, well-rounded education there in the old seminaries, huh?
Yeah.
So we want to move on to the next subplot.
Sure.
Okay, so the next one was about abortion, and there was a resolution that was proposed. Oh yeah, Bill Askell, who I imagine is related to Tom Askell, just a guess there, proposed a resolution to abolish abortion, and here's the key here. The resolution was for the immediate abolition of abortion without compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very important distinction to make between from other forms of being pro-life. Because what they're advocating for is that we must end abortion. We must end it now, obviously. But we're not going to compromise on any issue. So that means we will not accept any step forward that reduces abortion but does not abolish abortion. So this could be known as the incremental approach. We take incremental steps to end abortion. That's what somebody like Bill Askell would deny. To him, that would be compromise. And even says it in the resolution.
Yeah.
We reject an incremental approach to ending abortion.
Which, by the way, is, in my opinion, antithetical to being truly, in a practical living it outweigh pro-life. It doesn't work because it's essentially like walking past a homeless man who's being stabbed, and you're saying, well, because I can't save all the homeless men right this very second, I'm just going to let him die.
Yeah,
It doesn't work.
Like incremental would include things like New Life Solutions, which is local here. Like
We've interviewed Saul before, yeah. I mean, we want to save every life that we can.
An incremental approach is a woman sitting down or somebody doing ultrasound and giving a woman an option, her deciding, oh, I am going to choose life. Okay, well, the next person that comes in the room doesn't, but you're trying. You know, you're saving lives as you go. Well, if that's not acceptable, then you're saying, yeah, I mean, all those kids are going to die.
Yeah.
So how can you say you're pro-life at that point?
Right. No, it's really, at that point, it is strictly a political agenda, and you're not actually thinking about human life.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, that did not get passed.
So what did get passed was an amendment was proposed to this resolution, and the amendment by this one messenger was basically to add one word to the amendment to the resolution, where it said, "We will not rely. We reject an incremental approach to end an abortion." And he added the word "alone," so it was something like that. So we reject an incremental approach to abortion alone. So
right.
so basically to say, if we can abolish it immediately, then great.
But that doesn't mean we're going to stop all our other efforts.
We're willing to use incremental approaches. So that amendment did pass, and then the vote for the resolution did also pass. So essentially, I think that one word totally destroyed Bill Askell's original intention with the resolution. So I don't think he was happy.
I think it was interesting kind of digging your heels on that, because of all the things to discuss at SBC 21, everybody knows that Southern Baptists are pro-life. There's no question about that. Like there is not a pro-choice Southern Baptist. There's no place for that. You didn't need any other resolutions or anything to solidify that. So I thought that was just kind of like, it feels like we're wasting time on this.
I have to go soon-ish.
Yeah.
I got 4 minutes or so, but I just want to get this in there. Well, I still can. Was it Resolution 7 or 9 or what was the one that was dropped? Because I'm still hyper-focused on that because nobody talks about it.
And that was the one about the Capitol, right?
Right, exactly.
It was either 7 or 12. I don't remember.
I think it was 7.
So this one was quietly dropped. I mean, they said it, but it was quietly dropped. And it was basically saying that it was basically a rejection of Christian nationalism. And it was really good. You know, basically saying that we can't idolize a nation, that we need to be good citizens. It was a resolution on good citizenship in a nation.
And the final resolved was that, we reject the events of the Capitol insurrection.
Right. And I was like, yes, this is what evangelicals need to say right now.
Yeah.
And it just disappeared.
They ran out of time, and they're like, yeah, we're going to drop this. Yeah, and they never brought it back up. I was sad about that.
I want to get this trending maybe towards the next SBC or even before.
I mean, and technically it's it already is supposed to come up at the next SBC.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was tabled till the next meeting.
Okay.
We have to wait a whole year for that.
But how many other Capitol insurrections are we going to have before then?
Well, I don't think that the SBC's resolution is going to stop any.
No, it's not. But it is good to clarify that they don't agree with it.
Yeah.
So
because that's what resolutions are. Is the SBC saying this is what we believe about this issue?
Anyway, I thought it was interesting because with all of these things, like, it's deeply concerning to me that there were people who were opposed to a third-party investigation into allegations of sexual abuse. People who thought that was an overreach, or thought that was, like, why? You should be completely okay with that. Like, that should not be an issue for anybody. So that was kind of disturbing, but it was also encouraging that, like, that was a minority, I do believe.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But they were still there. And of the candidates, okay, there was
4 candidates.
4. There's only 3 that I really know anything about.
Yeah.
And I really thought that Al Mohler, he's been very influential in the Southern Baptist Convention. I really thought that he was going to get it, and surprisingly, he was not even in the top 2 contestants.
He was in the top 3, though.
Yes, he was in the top 3. That's because I don't even know what the 4th guy's name was.
The 4th guy only got like 500 votes.
Yeah. And then there was Mike Stone, who's super far right and apparently has a track record of being very mean to people.
He was the pick of the Conservative Baptist Network.
Take the ship. And then there's Ed Litton, who
He's the moderate.
is also conservative, theologically.
yeah,
and
they're all
but
conservative.
It's
but-
the Southern Baptist Convention.
Although those people accuse him of being a great
Right.
liberal.
He was a part of like a coalition for racial reconciliation that he started in his community, and so that makes him a liberal because he likes people who aren't white. And he also allowed his wife to share the stage with him when he was doing a series on marriage, which means that he's okay with women preachers.
Which means he's a progressive
Which means
liberal.
he's a progressive liberal.
He's too
What
far gone.
a freak.
Thankfully, Ed Litton won. He was, in my opinion, the best of the four candidates, the best option. But it's amazing that it's not a minority in the SBC right now. It is a very large chunk of the SBC that's saying this guy's a leftist liberal and he's going to destroy our
Well, there's
denomination.
still people attacking him on Twitter.
Oh.
If you've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so recently there was a video that was released of a J.D. Greear sermon.
Yeah.
And then it follows up with an Ed Litton sermon that's almost identical, right?
Yeah.
And I do want to talk about that for a second because there's one thing I noticed that I haven't really heard people talking about that's really odd to me. So both J.D. Greear and Ed Litton released a statement on it, and J.D. Greer's like, he asked me permission to use this, and and Ed Litton's like, I asked him permission to use it, and I'm sorry that I didn't make that clear when I preached it. Okay, so you can talk about should preachers be using other pastors' sermons, whatever. He didn't steal it. Okay.
Yeah, he got permission.
He got permission, so he just didn't do proper citing. And some people are like, well, you can get kicked out of school for that, so he shouldn't be allowed to be a pastor anymore. And I'm like, it's a little different.
A lot different.
But to me, the weirdest part about it that I don't hear anybody talking about is J.D. Greear tells a story of him going to Nepal and some things that he felt God speak to him during that trip.
Yeah.
Ed Litton shares the same exact story, the same exact scenario in Nepal with God communicating the same exact things, except he says that all of this happened to his friend Paul David Tripp.
They addressed that in their statement.
Okay, because I did not see that, because I'm like, wait a second, did that part's weird.
Yeah.
How is that addressed?
I'm pretty sure J.D. Greear addressed it in his statement. And from what I remember, J.D. Greear had that experience, but his experience was inspired by Tripp's experience. And the way he explains it is this is something that missionaries go through when they go overseas. Is they a lot of them experience the same kind of thing. And so that was his point, is J.D. Greear.
So they were both on the same trip?
They were not both on the same trip, but they both experienced the same thing.
Did they both go to Nepal at least?
Yeah, no, they both went to the same
Nepal.
temple in Nepal.
Yeah.
But
And they
then
both
they
got the same message from God.
essentially is what they're
Is-
saying.
is
Yeah,
that-
and I think J.D. Greear communicated that to Ed Litton when Ed Litton was asking for permission to use his message. So it's a little weird. There's a little bit of weirdness.
There's definitely weirdness there.
Yeah.
I can't
But
deny that, but
I would recommend you go. I'm pretty sure he addressed it. J.D. Greear addressed it in his statement.
yeah, and regardless, I see some weirdness, but I also feel like there's a lot more important things to be talking about right now,
Listen,
and that's there's
If misciting one another and not getting your story straight is like
all pastors
worst
need to throw
crime.
in the towel.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
There.
done. No, I mean, I was even thinking about it as everybody's talking about this. I'm like, there's probably some quotes that I've said in sermons before that I didn't like.
Well, and I wonder about that now too. If that's a big issue, but because sometimes I'll footnote it in my notes, right? But I'm not going to read the footnote to the audience all the time. Maybe I'll quote like the person,
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
R.C.
I'll
Sproul
say-
said, just quote.
right?
on page 437 of go through the whole thing. You got to read the whole citation.
But sometimes it's not worth. Well, let me put it this way: there are people that I admire that other people do not admire, but they've said true things, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's easier. I make sure I quote them and cite them in my notes, and so if anybody went back and looked at my manuscript or whatever, but I'll just say a prominent pastor once said, or so I do genericize it sometimes. I don't know if genericize is a word.
It's not, but I don't think that's wrong. I no, I mean it's
I'll
because you're at least saying I didn't come up with this, right? And that's
I'll let one of my secrets out of the bag here on the old podcast. Okay, a lot of people don't like the message, right?
Right.
By Eugene Peterson. I think the message is great as a commentary. That's how I view it.
heretic.
It's a commentary.
I have a confession to make as well.
What?
I used to not like the message.
Well,
I used to be really against the message.
so I
think all three of us did at one point.
I was never against the message. I just want to be on.
Oh,
on the
okay.
record.
Oh, yeah, because you're the liberal heretic.
Well, I actually started with some of his other work, and he explains the story of the message and how he built it, and it just totally made sense. He wrote the first part of the message that he wrote was Philippians, and he did it for a Sunday school class for them to understand the vernacular that Paul was writing in. Like the equivalent vernacular. So like his vernacular, how it translates to today's vernacular, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line is, Eugene Peterson has written some commentaries. So sometimes I'll say, as a prominent commentator would say, and I'll just quote the message and people eat it up. So I don't know who's going to listen to this, but
Yeah.
To me, the message functions as a commentary on more literal translations.
Yeah, that's basically what I've come to is man, I used to really despise the message because I'm like, it's not a true translation. Then I thought if it is, it helps people understand.
And he never
the
claimed
point.
it was. That was the thing. A lot of the publishers took and ran with it, and it became known as a translation. That was never Eugene Peterson's intent. His intent always was to help people understand the text better. That was it.
Yeah.
So it functions that way. All right, I have to go. I've got an important meeting, but you guys wrap it up. Don't say anything about me that I wouldn't say about myself.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
He's almost out of the door.
Goodbye. Hey,
He's
wait,
just
what
walking
time
out.
do you want to come back and set up our actual studio? 11-ish.
All right, he's gone now. Let's talk about him.
Johnny's a heretic.
Johnny's dumb.
Hey, so here's the deal. We came in very unprepared, guns blazing. We're just chatting. We're just chatting. But I think overall, some good steps were made.
It was a net positive.
Yeah. There's definitely concerns about the overall evangelical culture, and as I learn more about the history of the Southern Baptist Convention, I'm just like, man, we really gotta stop setting up church structure in a way that's so tied in with political agendas and money making schemes.
My concern was Ed Litton won. That was good, but he didn't win by a lot.
No.
He only won by I think like 500. And his opponent, Mike Stone, there's some weirdness there.
Yeah, the fact that there's that many people who support Mike Stone, who is going on podcast after podcast now, just blasting Ed Litton and spewing all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, there's some claims that the election was stolen, which sounds familiar.
The very nature of the Southern Baptist Convention is that we had net positive this year, but next year that could all be reversed just by the very nature of what SBC does. You know?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
So here's my question. I do think it's valuable to know about what's going on, and as people made the criticisms of Southern Baptists getting all the limelight in evangelical culture when it comes to secular news sources, it made me wonder, is it valuable for us, even if we're not going to watch the full live stream of every single denomination or convention's, annual hodgepodge? Because most denominations have something. You said the PCA is doing one right now. So Assemblies of God has one. Do you think it's valuable for Christians to at least read a summary and try and keep up with? I mean, because it's a lot, but try and keep up with all the major mainline denominations. Because I kind of felt that challenge. I was like, maybe I should keep up with what PCA is doing and what Methodists are doing and what.
Yeah, at least all the big denominations. And for example, Presbyterianism, if you were to look into any Presbyterian denomination, the PCA would be the one to look into because they are the largest conservative Presbyterian denomination in America.
And then PCUSA is the other one, right?
Yeah, the PCUSA is the liberal Presbyterian denomination.
Liberal.
And so we already know where they stand on things. I don't care what they do. They do whatever. But it is, I think it's important to just be aware. It's like watching normal news. Like, it's just good to watch. It's good to be informed about what's happening in the world, in our country. And why not that be the same with our these various American denominations?
Yeah, no, I want to do better at that because I definitely grew up in a little bit of a Southern Baptist microcosm, and it's like, it's probably good to keep up with what's going on,
And the internet is very useful for that. So I'm often reminded of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, or oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's good to keep up with that kind of stuff, the religious news in America.
Yeah.
And particularly like I was about to call it the SBC denomination, but a group like the SBC, because
lots
they are
of
the
people
largest,
call it a denomination, Ryan.
and it's fine. It's fine to think of it as a denomination, but it's a technicality.
So what denomination are Southern Baptist churches?
I guess
They're non-denominational?
In a way, technically speaking, I guess they are. They follow the Baptist tradition because being Baptist is not a denomination. Being a Baptist is a tradition, just like Presbyterianism is a tradition, or Methodism is a tradition. But being part of the United Methodist Church is being part of the denomination. Being part of the ARP is being part of the Associate Reformed Presbyterian denomination.
So being a part of the Southern Baptist Convention... Look, they just call it a convention because they wanted everything to be like a business.
I know, which I cringe at.
Yeah. I mean, is there not? I mean, there was a lot of bureaucracy and...
Oh, yeah.
It was weird. Not to say that, like, the structure of
it
Presbyterian denominations and stuff like that aren't organized, because they are, but,
And I'll be honest here, the SBC annual meeting, that was a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the allure for me when I was younger, is like going to the Florida Baptist Convention and seeing some of these things. Is like, I was just like, man, like, this is really well done. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Yep.
And I got a lot of free pens.
Yeah, you always got to go for the free pens.
One of them had a flashlight.
And yeah, you might even get lucky, get one with a flashlight. I've never been that lucky.
So, net positive, send us your questions. We want to answer them.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Ya yeet.